Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today we're going to be redoing our T1 season final thoughts and review, where we take a look at the map, talk about the KVK, look at Season 2, 2+, and then also show you some updated data numbers as well for the final zone here in T1 season, as far as how many flags does it take out of each pass to get to the dragon, to each of the choke points on the north T-choke and the southern choke, and also two additional things. One, hopefully we can make this shorter, and two, I wanted to address a couple inaccuracies that were mentioned in the first video in order to make sure that we are giving out correct information. The first one we talked about was the visual appearance from RKO here in purple, where they ended up building 6 flags and kind of hopping over this mountain here. Now, from what it's been explained to me, is that there is no way that you can mountain hop in a way like this if it's not connecting to a pass. And I'll give you an example here. Where we ended up seeing in ST1-4, we showed this off, where EIS built a fort. However, you could probably build a flag as well. You connect to the pass, you capture the pass acts as is kind of impromptu incognito road, and then you can build the flag over here and continue, right, building in that case. And so what ended up happening is that they actually built around, and you could see that from the territory here, and then they disconnected territory, right? And sadly, I'm over here thinking I just cured cancer and had found like the juiciest of lemons that I was so excited to tell people about. And that just was not the case, right? The logic is that you have to be able to connect a road to your flag in order to build. And it's one of the reasons why people have, I'll just say a number of alliances have been asking to increase the road length limits for a while now. We'll see if that happens. And then the second one was over here as well, right? We saw an alliance that basically built down here from the plateau to the ground and then across the river, right? Where you see the ramp is here and the bridge is here. Now, I guess my initial thought, and just let me know what you think on this one, is do you think that flags should be able to be active in situations where they would otherwise be ineligible to be active if you're disconnecting territory like that, right? Now, I understand the convenience of it. And someone had pointed out, I think in the CoD Gen chat as well, like just imagine if you weren't able, right? If this was not able to happen, how much more challenging or difficult that would be on just kind of like making room and Jake the Snaking territory for unions. But just a thought. All right, let's get into the meat of it all, which is the T1 season review. And thankfully, since I've already done this once, we should be able to maybe speed this up and get to some of the finer points, which is, and I talked about this in the first one, which is the ratings that I would give for the seasons, right, is T1, or for the season 2, I probably would rate this like a 4 or 5, 2+, or Bellerin season 1, but the OGs know it as this. I'd rate this a 5 or 6. The T1 season, or S2++, I'd rate this probably a solid 6, right? Maybe could push me to a soft 7, but I'm going with a solid 6. And we're going to talk about each of the seasons as well, along with how this kind of factors into the T1 season review. However, what are some things that I like about the T1 season? Well, what I like about the T1 season is that they ended up having full-on neutral zone 2s. This was something we saw in season 1+ for the OGs out there who remember that. And here you have 6 starting zone 1, Sophrostia, Kaltia. Zone 2 is Parhelion, right? This is the neutral that connects the two. Zone 1, Burning Lands. Zone 1, Zoland. Zone 2, Forgotten Lands, another neutral that connects Darlin and Zoland. And then you have Darlin and Nivolo for the other zone 1s. And the reason I like this is because it provides a big enough area where you have 3 fighting points that all 6 of the zone 1s can engage in. That's something I like. The other thing that I like is that connecting to the zone 3s, you have an equal amount of zone 1s and zone 2s. So if you look on the perimeter here, I have, even though I'm observing at the moment, actually, maybe it's better for me just to go back to the kingdom that this account's in, because then I could probably show that off a little bit better, because we can see the passes. So here in zone 1, I have 2 passes that connect to zone 3. In zone 2, I have 2 passes that connect here. If I go to this other zone 1, I have 2 level 2 passes that connect to the zone 3. And then in this zone 2, I have 2 level 3 passes that connect to the zone 3. You'll notice that in each of the zone 3s, they all have an equal number of 2 level 1 zones, or 2 zone 1s and 2 zone 2s that connect to the zone 3. So I like the equality of it. Then as we get to the zone 4, the passes themselves. Oh, sorry. The other thing I was going to mention is that In some of the zone ones, I do like how, and I guess it's like Zone Land would be an example, how there's a little bit less density and less terrain that just feels as though it's kind of, I don't want to say all over the place, but that it's very, I don't even know if chaotic is the right word to use, but let's just say there's a lot of diverse types of terrain. And here you have what I feel is a better mixture of open field area versus diversified terrain. And of course, that's not always the case in every single area. Forgotten Lands, you have a little bit of that with pockets of plateaus that have it. And then even in Darlin, you have some nice areas, and this kind of resembles more of your standard Season 1. And then if we end up getting to the final zone, right, what are some things that I like about the final zone? Well, to a degree, I like how there's 3 lanes. Regardless of how many lanes you may have, I like that they at least tried this out to see how it would work. And by when I say 3 lanes, I mean really for the most part, you have 3 chokes on either side, with the exception of that dragon is on one side of the 2. And the 3 chokes you have are here at the bridge, you have the T-choke here, and then you have the southern choke that's connected to this spire as well, right? Those are basically all the ways that you're going to get to the dragon if you're coming in from the right side or if you're trying to push west to east. And now let's talk about what I think are some of the opportunities on the map. So for me, simply put, I really liked the runic statue that we saw in the Bellerin season. However, I would have made some adjustments. I would have loved if they included the runic statue here. For example, if they would have put runic somewhere between like a zone 3 and the zone 2, right? Maybe between one of these. Maybe if they put the runic somewhere, and it's hard to say like in the middle, because if you put it in the middle of the zone 2, you'd have to allow both sides to be able to go, meaning no one would conquer it, right? So it's a little bit trickier in that situation. But being able to include it, I liked how they had it in Season 2, and I'll give you an example of that. And we can look at, we'll just look at a vanilla one here, right? Just to show you an example. But instead of having neutral zones, right, you could see here that they had runic. So between the starting zone 1's a runic. If you go over here, between the zone 3's, a runic. And then obviously you can see the adjusted map, right, which is the one that now Kingdoms are going into for Season 2, which is also the Season 2 Plus map. You could see with the adjustments here that now the runic is between the 2 zone 3's a lot bigger now. There's only 2 of them and not, I believe, 4 of them. I'm going to have to go back and count real quick. But you get my point, is that I like the runic. The challenge with the runic is that runic is king of the hill. That's what the mode is. And there's only one of them. And for me, I would have loved if the runic area was 2 to 3 times the size. And then instead of having one king of the hill point, you have one here, one on the north, and one on the south, right? Because this way it allows for more diverse combat and engagement in the field of play than everyone just beelining straight for the single, right? It allows for you to have 3 lanes of tactics and strategies compared to 1. Right, you can front load the top, front load the bottom, do a 2v1 focus, bottom or top, or on the outsides. You can flank from behind and come in if you're able to get around to anyone who's in the middle. I mean, you have flyers that are now maybe more beneficial because they can support a lot easier by saving their travel distance, right? Whether it's putting some here kind of back and forth or in between, they can go to the mid, south, top. Again, there's a lot more play styles that you can see enacted. However, one of the other things I think they could do outside of a King of the Hill is why not do like a team deathmatch, right? Where it's the first to a certain amount of kills. How about last man standing? How about capture the flag, right? Where instead of having flags in front of the gates, maybe they have them in corners, like one here and then one over here, right? Maybe you make corners out of the area that's 2 to 3 times bigger, right? And in that case, maybe Cav gets an opportunity to play a little bit. I mean, again, just think outside the box, right? You can do different game modes in this area, right? Regardless of what you call it. And so to me, it was just one of the things that I liked, and I wanted to see what the potential could have been with Runics, right? And so that's something that I feel is an opportunity that they could have added to the T1 season and still can, because I think that it doesn't need to be the focus. I like the fact that there's there's neutral zones to attack, or the fact in this case that they just really added one neutral zone, right? And it just happened to be zone 2. But the difference here is that this zone isn't dependent on you getting to zone 3, right? It's an in-between zone that's just called zone 2. So I'd almost love for them to continue that, where why not have zone 3 be the natural progression, and then zone 4 is the next neutral, and then zone 5 would be the final zone. Like, that could be something. I think that is an opportunity. And maybe they need to make the maps a little bit bigger, or they just need to adjust some terrain. But I think the logic behind it working in 1+, and now it working in T1, where we saw a lot of fighting that happened in Zone 2, I think they're onto something there. The Runics is an opportunity. And the next one for me is, and this is just more generalized, I just would like for there to be an equal balanced level of terrain. As it pertains to all the zones in the event that there's going to be fighting in any of them. And obviously nowadays there's a lot more fighting not happening in your starting zone 1 and happening in zone 2 and beyond. And so for me, it's just when we look at zones, I just think it's important to have, some form of balance in this case. And I'll give you an example here if I can. So let's look here at Hollandale, and let's look at this west side that for the closest level 2 passes. Right? Now let's imagine that there's 2 alliances, one each, that's going to take these passes, and they're going to end up fighting. Right? What is wrong with this just being a big open field? Right? Or what is wrong with this being an area that allows for you to have a ramp on this side? Like if you look over here, there's no ramp that separates this. Right? You have to go all the way around. So as an example, you'd have to go here to this level 3 pass, come all the way down here and go here, level 3 bridge, and then you'd have to go to this, what I mean is level 3 spire bridge, and plus the bridge. And then you have to go around, and you can see here, right, you go around the rock down, and then you come over here to the level 3 spire, go to this bridge, and then you access this pass. I mean, that's great and all, but as an example, right, like I would have either loved for the plateau to not exist here and just have this be a nice open field area, or if the plateau is going to exist here, then I would say make it a little bit bigger up and down, maybe a little bit more, spread it out, and then also put some ramps on this side. So that way you could potentially have, some kind of battle at the top of the plateau where you at least have an open field element to it. And let me give you a really good example here let's look at the south of final zone here. If you look at the south, you'll notice that between this level 4 pass and this level 4 pass, there's 13 flags that you can build to get to the middle, which is at the top of this ramp of the level 4 spire. You'll also notice that you have to go up the ramp to fight. But what do we notice about this plateau? Well, it's pretty big, right? I mean, it almost covers the entire area. Now, you can make the argument, do they need the plateau? No, not really. Does it add some terrain differences and whatnot? It does. Now, we all know that you don't have increased range from being on a second level or in an elevated area of the map, even though I think it'd be great if they did. Not to say it needs to be anything OP, but it would be cool if, it could at least be maybe like 1 or 2 legion lengths of distance that you have increased if you're on an elevated structure. However, I digress. It's nice because you get to play this out in the open field. This is not a small area. It's not an incredibly large area, but you have opportunities to see how the open field would play out here as you're kind of fighting for this beeline at the level 4 spire down the ramp across the bridge, which then takes you right to Dragon, right? However, it also doesn't cut you off from being able to go north, and this doesn't cut you off from being able to go north here, right? But it is nice because, and I personally think the southern third or the southern quarter of the map here in our zone here in Atherin, or I should say in T1, is probably the most balanced zone, or the most balanced part of the zone, in my opinion, because it just offers you a lot. And it also doesn't deny you anything, and it's completely equal on who can build to the center point at both sides. And then we look at the final zone here. And with the final zone, we take a look at, and we see that, again, like we mentioned, there's 3 primary chokes that get you to either side, with the dragon being on the left. Now, after we looked at adjusted numbers, we ended up seeing, and I'll show you the numbers real quick too as well. Let me skadoosh this over, bam, and let's look. So these are the updated numbers that we have for Dragon. So as I explained in the first video, W1, W2 is the west passes, and then 1 and 2 going top down. On the eastern side of Zone 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 going top down. So these are the amount of flags, and if it's squiggly here, that just means plus or minus 1, that you would build from the pass to get to the Dragon. And then the North Bridge choke, that's the one we mentioned. How many flags does it take to get to that? And then the center T choke, which is really and has been for all of the T1 seasons, the biggest engagement point, we can say, on average. And you could see here how many flags it takes there. And then on the south choke, right, it being even Steven. So with this in mind, I guess my thing here is that a clear opportunity is I would just love for the Dragon to either be, let me be clear, to either be centrally placed, or in a similar way to how they did the Season 2 and 2 Plus, maybe they put it at like the southernmost. Maybe they extend this and put this at the southernmost, and then they make this like a triangle, as an example, right? Or maybe what they do is, instead of having 2 and 4 passes on this side, maybe they do 3 on the left, 3 on the right, and the routes are all the same, right? So an example would be like, if you have to start up here, maybe it beelines and then it curves. Here, maybe it curves a little bit, then it beelines. Here, maybe it curves a lot, and then it beelines down to the Dragon, right? But it makes it so that way the amount of flags you have to build are the same to get to the Dragon. And then it's just a matter of, how do you want to do that? Do you want to make the Dragon a pit? Do you want to make like a big open field area outside of the Dragon, right? Kind of like a runic statue where you have the controlling point in the middle, and then you're fighting on the outside of it? Do you want to make like a big open field Colosseum style and the Dragon's in the middle? I mean, again, you have options on what you can do. My biggest thing is I would just love to see some balance and fairness in the amount of flags that you can build from the pass to the Dragon, and it's equal all the way around. Now, as far as it pertains to choke points, I am somewhat just more of a fan of seeing more open field play. That doesn't mean that I think choke points should be eliminated. I very much like choke points. I personally would like to see them change choke points up a bit. In most cases, the choke points are all pretty thin, with the exception if you're going around, you know, like a mountain pass, or you're going through some mountains to get to something, right? Those can vary. But I'm talking like a dedicated choke point that can just be a bit wider than it is thin. And a couple examples of that is like this one, right? This is pretty thin if you look at this for where the spire is on this choke. Now, you can make the argument that the choke does open up here, right? But I'm talking like consistency on the width. I'm okay with some variety like this, but I would also like to see some consistency. Even up here, right? Sure, you have different layers, right? Multiple, well, if you're going up there, but if you're just coming to the level 4 spire, right, you have 2 ways that you can go. What's wrong with this being wider? What's wrong with this being double the size and double or triple the width, right? I mean, if you're going to have fights at choke points, right, I don't know. It's just, to me, am I okay with something like this occasionally? Sure. Would I rather see these be a little bit wider, not to the point of where you can only run 1 legion through it, even though, yes, you can stack the legions and everyone can move together. One of the biggest enjoyments of PvP is seeing, in my opinion, units spreading out, seeing how they apply pressure, how they fall back, how they counterattack, how they switch up their positioning. And being able to see that, to me, is always going to be kind of a higher quality testament of skill of said alliances and of those players, because they just have more abilities to show off the complexities of their strategies and their on-field tactics through micromanaging. So again, those to me are some opportunities. Here is just wanting to kind of maybe see some more open field areas. And one of the examples I've given before is that if you look at something like Rise of Kingdoms, right, they really don't have any true choke points. I mean, unless they've done some major adjustments to the maps as of late, which maybe they have or maybe they haven't. Really, the only choke points there is just passes. But outside of that, right, it's pretty much kind of an open field. Sure, there might be some hills or a mountain range here or two, but nothing like as much as we see in COD. And I think one of the great things, and this is, like I said, not a bash or to say like, hey, we need to eliminate them, as I said previously. I think it's great that we see trial and error testing. I think it's great that COD is taking chances, whether they are or not. I'm just saying that, generally speaking, in trying out different things, right? And I love the fact that we have, that they tried going back to the Season 1 map, made adjustments, and then we have a totally different map with Belleron, and maybe we'll get a totally new map that'll be named something different with Season 3. So I'm totally okay with taking chances, but I just hope that we're looking at, after we take those chances, what are the takeaways? What are the good things that we learned, and then what are the things that, okay, maybe just didn't work out so well? And then let's take the best stuff and apply those. So that's pretty much it. I will show you off the Season 2 maps real quick. And I'm shocking because I'm already spending less time on this than I did on the first one. Yeah, wee. Okay, so this is the old Season 2 map that's being phased out. You can see here, this goes from 77 to 82. Once we get to S283, which starts at 301, you see a new map changed. You'll also notice that 83 to 86 are the Season 2 Plus map. Notice how nothing changed here, and I'll click on each one just so you can see that the map does not change in the background, right? So basically it's being phased out, and this is what we're going to end up seeing is the S2 Plus map for Season 2. So let's just show you some of the differences. Actually, to be fair, I could have just showed you that from the visual, right? So let's go here, 82. We have 4 starting Zone 1s. You are then expanding into a Zone 2 here, 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 and I think it's here. Zone 2... I have to remember this now. Oh, sorry, no. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope, I had it right the first time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Zone 2. Zone 3. No, sorry. No, I got Zone 2, Zone 2, Zone 2, Zone 2. The Zone 3s don't connect. Yes! I did it. It took a minute. And so then you go to Zone 4. If we go to the new map, oh, dang it, I wish I could see something. Okay, here we go. Nice. The new map. We have 6 starting Zone 1s. 1, 2, 3. Division. 1, 2, 3. Zone 2. Zone 2. Zone 2. Zone 2. And then Zone 3. Right? So you can see here that they've reduced. They made the final zone smaller. They changed up the amount of Zone 3s and the amount of Zone 1s and basically just did a big shift to how it looks. Now, visually, as far as it pertains to Final Zone, I'm going to show you a difference that they made here. And it is very small when you really think about it, but it does change out how the Final Zone is going to be played. So here you could see that it's all one level here on the plateau or on the second level, right? For the SB1-7 we're in. If we go and we look at an older, or the older Season 2, you will notice that now the third level has been removed, right? So you have the ground floor, second level, you'd come up the ramp, and then here you're on the third level. There's also a ramp on the back too as well over here, right? And obviously there's other things that have been changed, but these are just some of the more noticeable things as it pertains to kind of a high-level overview. Okay, I think that for the most part covers everything where we touched on the T1, opportunities and not. We addressed the inaccuracies. We also touched on the updated stats and showed you off the other seasons. Yeah. I guess the last thing to maybe say is I'm curious on when we look at the different seasons and how we've gotten to the T1 season, do you like some of the adjustments that they've made from previous seasons? Do you like the direction that the KVK maps are going in? Do you agree or disagree on some of the points I mentioned for opportunities or some of the things that I just find are, well, I guess, yeah, there really would be the opportunities. And what I really probably should have meant to say is the strengths. So whether it be the opportunities or the strengths, I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments down below. As always, that's going to do it for me. Until next time, I will catch y'all later.